awesome.
Awesome.
That was awesome.
You guys are awesome.
No,
You're awesome. You are awesome.
Sir, you are awesome. Seriously.
Awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
Everything is awesome.
Welcome to this week's edition of Everything is Awesome. I'm your host, Kev, and this is a show where we sit down and talk to awesome people about awesome things. Now, we're going to make this a quick intro because this episode with the boys from Dissecting the 80s, Tripp and Andrew, we did an ambush style of recording where we just hit record, and we do an intro a couple minutes into it, but I wanted to give a proper, intro to the boys. They are two podcasters. We've already aired our first podcast with two hosts, but this was the first time I sat down and recorded with two other guests. We recorded this one over a month ago, and they had gone to the Baltimore, I think it was the Baltimore Podcast Con, where they did a live show there, and now they're doing one this weekend. So make sure you check that out at the Philadelphia Podcast Festival at Tattooed Mom. You can check out phillypodfest.com for the official date and times that everyone's going to be performing this weekend. Dissecting the 80s will be there. And of course, thank you, Super Friends. Thank you for everyone who came out and checked out the Philadelphia Podcast Fest this past weekend, especially for you, Super Friends, who came out and checked out Everything is Awesome. It was a blast. I loved doing it. Learned a lot about how to do our live show. So the next one we do is going to be even better because we're going to adjust some things that didn't work and we're going to amplify the things that did work. And it was just thank you to Orlando Barrios who came out and made me do some push-ups and some ab rolls and stuff. Thank you to Garrett Smith for coming out and slaying it with his comedy. And of course, thank you to my co-host for the afternoon, Mike D'Angelo. Thank you to Jen, my fiance, for supporting me during this month of prep. And thank you to all of you for coming out and supporting the show and the Philadelphia Podcast Fest. Thank you to Nathan and Tegan for putting it together. Thank you to Tattooed Moms for hosting it. Oh my God, I can't tell you how much fun it was, and I can't wait till we round out this Philadelphia Podcast Festival month with our live edition that will be airing on August 31st, 2016. But until then, let's get on with this week's show with Andrew and Tripp from Dissecting the 80s. Take it away, boys.
So this has been like a really weird weekend for me because Andrew is in a play right now in Wilmington, and no one else in the family was going to go see this really bloody zombie Night of the Living Dead musical. And so I was like, I'll go. I'll be the family representative at this production. And I was like waiting for him to come out, like all the other actors to come out. And I was like yelling into the curtains because I had to drive back to Baltimore. And a person came up to me who I'd never met before and was like, are you waiting for Andrew? And I was like, yeah. Do you know him? And he's like, yeah, I'm waiting for him too. I'm like, cool. And I go back to like yelling because I'm like kind of frustrated. And he's like, wait, are you Tripp? And I'm like, yeah. And I get like, I'd never met this person before. And he's like, I love your podcast. And I was like, oh, thank you. And I had to turn from being like frustrated with Andrew to not coming out to be like, thank you so much, random person who just made my night. Like, this is great.
That's fantastic.
And then we're on your show being interviewed, which is like, obviously we're the kings of the whole universe. And then we got a random comment from a stranger on an old podcast episode on Facebook. So it's like, oh my God, like we're obviously hugely famous.
We're not just shouting into the ether. Like there's someone on the other side.
Forget all you peons. We're like, we're famous now, obviously. I don't know.
But then we're gonna get to the other side. It's gonna be fucking whales. It's gonna be the whales being like, we're all alone in the future.
It's funny because that's how I used to wrestle, and again, keeping it now that we're officially recording, I'm also going to keep this short because people are tired of hearing me talk about me wrestling. But
wait! I'm sorry that I haven't listened to your whole back catalog, so I don't know the answer. Are we talking like
WWE style?
Oh my God, I'm so excited! Like, I heard you drop wrestling references before, but you just opened Pandora's box, my friend.
Yeah. So I used to WWE style wrestling. I was trained by. I don't know how deep into wrestling you are, but
he's very deep.
So you may be familiar with a indie guy by the name of Reckless Youth.
CZW.
Well, he's like the founder or co-founder of Chikara.
Oh, yeah, like with Quackenbush, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's the guy that trained me, and right before that, like even before that, we put on live shows. Like before we had him come in and we upped our game, we put on live show. We got like in the state of Pennsylvania, it's super hard to wrestle. Like you need to have $10,000 to get an insurance bond that's worth $1 million, I guess.
That's bananas.
To get your license and everything that you need. You also have to have an ambulance on site or be within like 5 miles of a hospital. But regardless, like, so that I did that, and I worked at Staples at the time. So when I would be in Staples and like just stocking the shelf, randomly I would hear, "Hey, yo, Steel Tip," and that was my wrestling name. So I turn around and give the big thumbs up, and I was just like you guys, like on top of the world.
All right, I got to hear about Steel Tip, man. Give me the pitch.
Well, okay, so we have to go back to the beginning, the origins.
Okay, yeah.
I feel like I'm on your show getting interviewed. The origins of Steel Tip actually was where we started wrestling in the backyard. And I'm such a huge Shawn Michaels fan.
Okay.
That I decided to wrestle as Heartbreak Kev.
Okay, all right.
For the first 4 weeks that we did it. And then my last match with this guy that I was having a feud with, what was his name? I forget what his name was, but his gimmick was similar in the sense that he was like a ladies' man or whatever.
Okay.
And the loser had to give up their gimmick, and we decided that because I was just doing copyright infringement, I would lose. Spoiler alert to everyone out there: wrestling's fixed.
Not fixed, it's scripted.
Yes, scripted. Scripted. You're right. And so then when we were developing my new gimmick, I was like, well, how about I just wear steel tip boots and I'll go out as steel tip, and that's how that happened. And I after about 3 weeks of kicking people in the head, we decided that I should just get regular boots and say they're steel tip. And my whole gimmick, yes, and my whole gimmick was like I was from Pittsburgh, and which was really fun when we had like even in the backyard we had like live shows, like our big pay-per-view event. We would not real.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
But our big quote unquote pay-per-view event, we would we would invite all our friends and family. They'd come and watch and whatnot. And eventually, like I said, we upgraded to like getting a license and going to I'm from the Levittown area, so like we would go to the Eagles Hall, we would go to all the little churches around here and whatnot, and put on live shows. And they were fun because I liked playing a heel, so I could really lay into the Philadelphia fan crowd. By being a Pittsburgh guy and being a fan of the Steelers and the Penguins and whatnot. So it was a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's I broke my ankle, and that's actually what led me into podcasting. Like I had to leave wrestling because of my broken ankle, and I just never I got really out of shape and started talking a lot. So and I was always a fan of like talking on the mic and wrestling, so that's how I got here.
Yeah, no, like the dream job for me would be the job that Paul Heyman has right now, where like I'm 5'10", I'm not cut like a guy that would be a pro wrestler, but like being able to be a heel manager.
Dusty, I thought.
I mean, Dusty is a little bit different. It's a little bit different era, but sure. But the dream job for me would be able to go out there and cut the heel promo, and like that would be the dream of all dreams. We also backyard wrestles, although no one ever came out to see it. Yeah. But
that was not me.
Yeah, that's true. Andrew and I had very different lives at that point.
It was we as in you and your friends.
Yes, yeah. But we would videotape it and do all that stuff. But the best part was me being a huge movie nerd. So I don't know if you remember like. This is the most I've ever admitted to liking wrestling in public, by the way. So you should feel very honored.
Okay.
But we're talking like 99, 2000 era, like when ECW was on channel 13, like that kind of thing. And they would have these video things that they'd like you could purchase infomercials. Sorry, is the word I wanted there. That. It would be like the best of backyard wrestling, and it'd be guys like jumping off roofs. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I do. I don't know. I don't know where I saw it. I guess it was on infomercials, but I totally do remember, now that you say it, I remember those commercials.
So I used to be I still am like a huge movie nerd. So when we would see the stuff like that, be like, oh, we got to do a fire table. And I'd be like, yeah, but if we set the camera up over here, we only have to light the edge of the table and it'll look like the whole table's on fire. So like we would light the table up and then we would have the camera move and the table would not be on would only be on fire on the edges so that the person wasn't actually getting like thrown through fire.
Oh wow, that's smart,
Yeah.
because the way
He's a hit at parties.
the way we did it, the way we always like prided ourselves in the backyard of being like responsible, but we still did a table on fire thing only once, and we lit it on fire just completely. I don't know. I guess we did. I don't remember if we threw someone through it or not. Like. So one thing people also have learned about me is my memory is real terrible because of wrestling, because I did it for like 10 years almost.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Yeah, well, and I'd say most of it was the backyard, week in and week out, and that's where all the injuries I ever had occurred. Like, I don't think I ever got injured in real, like when we did it like legitimate.
Did you have a ring in the backyard or was it on a trampoline?
Yeah, so we started in the ground, on the ground.
Okay.
Well, the first place we did it was I guess I can say it because I don't go there anymore. Pennsbury High School.
Okay.
In Levittown or Fairless Hills or wherever, and we set up bungee cords in between two fences basically, and then we got kicked out of there. And went to an apartment complex, and I don't know why we thought it was a good idea to like just pretend there was ropes, but that's what we did. We pretended there was ropes.
That sounds very Chikara.
And then eventually we moved into a buddy's backyard, and we said we can't do this tarp wrestling anymore. Like, it's the middle of winter; it hurts to land on the ground. So we built a ring.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
I never wrestled on a trampoline. So I always did the ground, and then the group that we combined with was the trampoline people.
Okay.
But when I started on the ground, we didn't do anything but like punch, kick, and like an elbow drop.
Yeah,
we didn't do anything hardcore. And so they came along and showed us like, yeah, we used to wrestle on a trampoline. We'll do it on the ground too. And then hence a lot of injuries, just flipping each other under the ground.
Yeah, that sounds really terrible.
Yeah.
It was not a good idea.
Yeah.
So kids out there, if you, I'm not against backyard wrestling. If you're going to do it right and at least have some sort of padding you're going to land onto.
So you say backyard wrestling, and now I just want like the backyard baseball, backyard football games to come out with the backyard wrestling.
Oh God, I remember those.
With that like pot-bellied kid who was the pitcher. He's like, he can like
His
elbow
name
drop
started
now.
with a P.
Oh. Dude, I played that for like a whole like 2 months. I remember. I don't think I played backyard baseball, but backyard football I remember.
Backyard baseball was the one that I did, which
Yeah.
was shocking for me.
We played a lot of backyard baseball.
Yeah. But yeah, so we built a ring, and
Awesome.
like we went to Tire City. I think they gave us tires. And that was the spring that we had in the thing. And then Falls Township shut us down.
Probably
So-
wisely.
Well, that didn't stop us. We then went to Bristol Township and bought a ring for like 10 grand. Like I think maybe it wasn't 10 grand. Maybe it was only 5 grand. It was still a lot of money for a bunch of teenagers.
Yeah.
Like we were all at the time like in our at the youngest 17 probably, and at the oldest maybe 20, but like all young kids. So why we bought a 5 grand ring, I don't know, especially when we weren't doing live shows. But then I don't know, I think we just wanted to go legitimate, and someone had got hit by a car and had $10,000 for the license.
Wow.
Okay then.
Yeah, so and that started that's kind of when I started getting I weaned out of it, because I don't know, did you guys ever, or I guess Tripp, the wrestling fan,
Yeah,
did
Tripp,
you
not
ever
me.
hear of UWF in, I don't know where you're from exactly in the Philly area, but
We're Downingtown, it's like outside Westchester.
gotcha. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So you have not heard of them, but they were a local like Levittown, Fairless Hills place.
Oh, okay.
And they still every now and then put on shows, but the UWF is where like as soon as I turned 18, like I was able to get a match with them. But then after that, any live shows we did were our own, and Yeah, I weaned out of it because I had accomplished my dream of wrestling in front of a live crowd.
Yeah.
There you go.
And B, it was politics. Like I suddenly was no longer one of the top guys, like helping write the show, and politics got involved, and everyone in there at that time of their life are just a bunch of egotistical dickholes, myself included. So I weaned off of it, got injured, and said I'm going to talk into a mic. So there on my show, you guys interviewed me, and you got the secret origin of podcasting.
I'm sorry, I'm a reporter.
The
I
true
can't
Hollywood
turn it off.
story.
Yeah. Final question. Final questions for you.
You
One.
say final question. And
Yeah,
you know
it's not. It's not the final question.
It's going to come up later and again and again.
Final questions before we stop talking about wrestling and alienating everybody on this phone call who's not me and you. Also, side note, Andrew, Chikara, you can cut this out. Chikara is the guy Jervis Cottonbelly that I showed you the videos of, the guy who wrestles with the fake monocle mask.
Oh, him. Yes, I like him.
Okay, so that's Chikara. But
my audience knows Chikara. We had Jeff Stormer from Party of One on.
Oh, cool.
And Jeff is so in love with Chikara. Like you listen to his episode, anyone that hasn't, or his episodes, I forget if we were a two-parter or not, but he goes into great detail about Chikara and why it's awesome. He may be their biggest fan.
I haven't gotten to see them yet, but every time I come home, I'm like, Andrew, there's a Chikara show. Do you want to go? I'll buy your ticket. And he's like, we have 48 things to do, including recording 9 podcasts. We are not going to a wrestling show.
I have 2 shows tonight. I'm doing a podcast in between and then a podcast after. When do you want to go see Chikara?
So my 2 questions for you. One, is there video footage of any of your matches?
Yes.
Okay, I would like to see that. So if you could email it to me, I would love to watch it.
It will probably be going up. I think I promised someone I'd throw it up on YouTube soon, so it will be up on YouTube.
Do that. If I had the tapes of us backyard wrestling, I'm the guy who the 2 people I wrestled with in the backyard, and there were occasionally other people that rotated in, but the 2 like main guys, it was literally the 3 of us just constantly fighting each other. There was a lot of really good writing.
We had a lot of masks.
Yeah, we had no masks, but our 3 characters hated each other forever and ever, and there was always one-on-one matches and never a triple threat because then they had to be on a tripod and there'd be no commentary.
Gotcha.
So I would kill to have that. Like I will email him from time to time. We barely talk, but I'll be like, "Did you ever find that tape? Because I want that tape. Like I want it back. I want the tape. I want to record. Like put it on digital and have it." But what's the worst bump you ever took?
Okay, so the worst bump I ever took. I'm going to give you 2 answers.
Okay.
One that happened in the ring, and this was a lie. Was it? No, this was just a standard backyard show. I did, and I had not been watching WCW for sure at the time, but I did a big boot off the top rope, like what was it, Sid Vicious?
Oh yeah.
Where his leg popped out of his bone.
Yeah, it's really grisly.
And after I did it and I landed the way he landed, everyone was like, "You're an idiot," and my ankle eventually by the end of the day was the size legitimate of a grapefruit. I probably tore ligaments in that ankle if I had to guess, but I did not go to the doctors because I said they're going to tell me to kick my foot up and not do anything. So again, when you're 17 years old, you don't listen to anybody.
Right.
And then the other bad injury I had, and it wasn't even that bad in the sense that it just scared me from never doing the move again. This was when we were pro and I was practicing. We rented a warehouse after I think we got kicked out of Bristol Township too.
Okay.
And we rented a warehouse and put our ring in there and just trained there, and then would move the ring when we had to do a live show. So practicing, I used to do this thing I called it the inverted swanton.
Okay.
So standing on the top rope with my back to the ring, like I was about to do a moonsault, except I would jump backwards and do a front flip.
Like a reverse shooting star press?
I guess, yeah. It's literally just a front flip, but me jumping backwards while I do it.
Okay.
And I used to do it a lot in the backyard when we had a ring at least, and for whatever reason, I guess either the ropes were wet or something was slick. As I jumped, my boot slipped on the rope, and instead of doing the front flip, I just landed like head first onto the mat. And it did not it just like gave me the little nummies around my whole body for like an hour or so.
That's scary.
Yeah, no, and that's the like. As soon as that happened, I said, "I'm never doing that move again."
Yeah.
So so that was but that was only like an hour-long injury. But still scary.
There's a reason that no professional does a reverse shooting star press, I guess, and I guess that is what you just told us.
Yeah, it's insanely. I can't believe all the stuff because now I think about. I get the itch all the time, usually around March, because that's when we started. Like, I think we started wrestling in 2001.
Okay.
So March, I usually get the itch because that's when we started in the backyard, and I'm always like, man, I really would love wrestling again. But I just climbing onto the roof of my house, I am scared to do that now at 32. So I don't think I could do wrestling anymore. But I swear that one more time before I die, I'm going to do it again. Because it is so much fun to actually same thing like when I've done one live podcast before like about 9 years ago, and it's just that adrenaline rush of being in front of a crowd. And I guess Andrew, you're a performer, you know this, like it's just a great adrenaline rush.
There's nothing like it.
Yeah. So I want to do that one more time, but for now, live podcast will do.
Cool.
So,
should we do an introduction? I feel like we just
So now that we're ready to start the show proper, and we'll sidetrack one more time before I officially start the show.
Okay.
I think Brian from Full Belly Laughs that we were talking about off air.
Yeah.
His episode is to me one of the best episodes because we literally went, I think, an hour and a half, if not more, into our 2 to 2.5 hour conversation, talking about like Magic the Gathering and did not bring him up or his podcast or his comedy or anything until about an hour and a half or more into the show. So
I mean, don't get me wrong, I could talk to you about wrestling for like all the time.
I could leave. Like I could go to Wawa, get a hoagie from Hoagie Fest, come back, and the conversation would still be happening.
Yeah. Like,
so what I've learned is that we need to get Tripp, Jeff Stormer from Party One, and I think we can also get this guy from out west, Ace Marrero. He talked wrestling quite a bit with me too. The four of us could do an all wrestling cast.
Hey, you know how to get in touch with me. It's not that hard.
So, all right, so let's start the show proper. Welcome to this week's edition of Everything is Awesome. I'm your host, Kev, and this is the show where we sit down and talk to awesome people about awesome things. As you've heard my two guests already on the show, because I'm not going to edit this to sound proper, we have two guys. It's a history-making show, the second history-making show in our run so far, where we're going to have two guests on the show this week, which I have not done in years. I can't even remember the last time I talked to more than one person at a time on a show. They are fellow podcasters that originate from the Philly area. One of them's still here. The other is in Maryland somewhere for no good reason. There could be a good reason. I'm making things up now. And they are movie buffs, or at least one of them is. We have heard one of them is a huge wrestling buff. And they do a podcast called Dissecting the 80s that we'll get into at some point during the show. Please welcome to the show. I don't know their last name, so I can't even butcher it. Tripp and Andrew.
Woo!
Leno.
Okay. Welcome to the show, guys. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, I'm excited because it's just so happens to be a coincidence that I'm getting a lot of the shows that are going to be on the podcast fest here in Philly on the show in August, like right before it happens. So it's just like a nice little coincidence that this is happening, and I don't know, it's getting me more pumped for the show.
Yeah, we're obviously crazy excited for it. We have a live one in Baltimore. I don't know when you're putting this out, but we have a live one in Baltimore August 6th as well. So we have two in August. It's like a little mini tour for us.
Yeah,
that's cool. Well, people were already to your Baltimore one. Okay. I will try to post something about it.
You don't have to. Yeah, that's totally fine. I just figured if you didn't know what your schedule was, so might as well.
For the people listening at home, I've already had such an awesome live show that happened on August 21st at 2 p.m. at Tattooed Moms. If you have a time machine, I suggest going back. But for these guys, make sure you check them out this Sunday, August 28th at Tattooed Moms at 5 p.m.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And
We can tell you then, since you're going to be releasing it, we haven't made this announcement anywhere yet, but
You get the exclusive.
yeah,
Oh, yes.
yeah. Although you have to keep it a secret, other than on this file recording that'll come out in August. But we're going to be doing Top Gun.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. So how are you guys doing? Are you doing anything different than you normally would for your home shows versus the live show?
We're going to interact.
I'm dressing up for the live shows.
That's definitely happening. We're definitely going to interact, but I'm trying to figure out the best way to do it. So I'm hoping that we can bring some stuff in. We're trying to at this point like figure out how to do that and make sure it doesn't go terribly. I don't know if you've ever listened to How Did This Get Made? It's another bad movie
familiar.
podcast. It's
Oh no, I've heard of them simply because I think I had an idea for a podcast with one of my buddies who I desperately trying to figure out an idea to do a podcast with, and it was similar to that where he said, "Go listen to that, and I'll tell you," and then you won't want to do it.
Okay, yeah. I mean, we don't have that problem because like I was in. We've been watching bad movies for a long time, so
Yeah.
that there's a cottage industry of bad movie podcasts doesn't really bother, and I think our niche is pretty different. But I listen to
Also, we don't always do bad ones.
That's
Like
true.
once a year, we do a good one.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Once a year, we don't torture ourselves.
Yeah. But like so How Did This Get Made does live shows, and they frequently bring the audience in, and it's kind of like a mood killer because there's kind of like an awkward shuffle while they try to get the people to a microphone and all that stuff. So we definitely are going to have some level of crowd interaction, even if it's just as simple as like asking questions and trying to get applause response for things like, yeah. So we'll see. I hope to be interactive in some capacity, although what shape that takes is perhaps not known to us yet.
Well, and I had the same problem with this show because the last time I did a live show, we were mainly emceeing like a music fest or something. So like it was like I just had it basically instead of doing full segments, we were the commercial break.
Okay.
Cool.
And then we did and I was thinking about doing this and at the time of this recording, I don't think it's going to happen, but maybe it did. And people listening know that it happened or not by listening to or being at the live show at the very least. We did a habanero pepper eating contest 9 years ago.
That's a rough one.
It was, and I'm hoping that I can tell it now because my show already happened. I'm hoping that this maybe comes up in my monologue for the live show. But yeah, the guy that won, it was basically just me and him doing it. And I pushed, like, he wanted to win so bad that he did enough to beat me. And then he ended up puking that night. Like, literally, I went to the bathroom to take a leak and he was in there puking. And I'm like, I'm sorry, buddy.
I cannot imagine a more
Painful?
upsetting puke to be having than I won a habanero pepper eating contest and now it's returning.
It was for whatever reason I prided myself on being able to do that 9 years ago, and like the thought of the reason it probably won't happen is that I don't want to torture myself.
Why would you?
I mean, 9 years ago I was an idiot.
Yeah, but you were a much younger man then.
Yeah, so now at 32, like I know not to do it. Like I know I won't enter the contest if I do it.
But you'll host it, yeah.
Oh yeah, I'd totally let other idiots do it. But and the problem is that I'm on so early that I don't think it's feasible to do something like that. I don't think enough people will be drunk enough at 2 p.m. to.
I mean, you never know with Tattooed Mom.
Okay, see, I've never been. I'm actually at the time of this recording. Obviously, I've done the live show, and I'm probably going around the 25th after work just to go kind of like check the place out since I've never been there.
Mm-hmm.
And because I think I'm overthinking this live show, and this goes back to my wrestling roots of being very like flashy and showy. And again, I'm telling you guys because it's already happened. But when talking to my buddy, I was like, I don't know how to do this show live. Like I sit there and talk to somebody for an hour. Like that doesn't seem fun at all. And he's like, well, why don't you do like this, and this, kind of like a late night show? And my jaw dropped because I was like, I've wanted to do late night like in new media for so long. That's genius. So and that's kind of how we're modeling this show, like in our take on like a late night show. So we're doing the whole monologue thing, and we're gonna have a couple bits. We're gonna have a guest, and we're gonna round it out with like for this show a stand-up comedian.
Nice,
but, like,
that's awesome.
For future shows, like it's open to like a band at the end and just like traditional like kind of late night Conan O'Brien and Jimmy Fallon I'm a fan of, like their kind of take on late night with my own little awesome spin on it, if you will. I know
that you need to borrow our DeLorean to make this happen, but we're willing to lend it to you. Another fun bit you might want to do, and again, feel free to not use this if you don't want to, but you could have the audience just submit random questions.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And just like choose one out of a hat, and like that's the question that you riff on.
That's not a. Oh, we'll see. Okay, so that we may be doing something similar to that.
Cool.
Depending on whether we can show a pre-produced skit or not.
Okay.
If we can do that, we're gonna do that. If not, we're gonna probably replace it with an improv game.
Nice.
Always fun.
Which me and the guy who's co-hosting, we have a passion like to learn improv, and we're probably, at least I'm going to be taking a class at Philly Improv Theater.
Good people.
Yeah, I was going to take the ones that starts in August, but I'm just way too busy, so I think I'm going to take it over in the fall sometime. So I'm going to be learning on the fly an improv game and improv in general at the Philly Podcast Fest.
I mean, as someone who went to theater school, the 3 rules that you need to hang on. I don't know if I remember the 3 rules. I remember 2 of the 3 rules. It's yes and show don't tell are the only important things to remember.
Okay, all right, that's good to know.
Improv.
Such a valuable degree experience.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Maybe I'll just go to you to get coached.
I also took a class in physical improv, and my final was to like create some kind of physical improv in a found space. And I told mom and dad that, and dad was like, "That was your final? You like wiggled around in seats in a theater?" And I was like, well, yeah, but it was different because like the audience sat on the stage and we were where the audience was. So we flipped it on its head, and he was like, but that was your final.
Okay.
Can I help illustrate the picture of our dad, since your audience has not, we talk about it all the time on our show, but your audience.
Have you ever seen the dad from Inside Out?
Inside, no.
Okay. So he's kind of like Ron Swanson if you watch Parks and Rec.
Okay.
But here's a great illustrative example. My dad calls me like once a week. We chat briefly and talk about whatever. And the Baltimore Podcast Festival was at the beginning of August. And so a couple weeks before that, we're on the phone talking. And he was like, so people are going to come to this bar and they're going to watch you talk. And I was like, well, we tell jokes. Like our show's funny. People think it's funny. It's kind of like going to a stand-up show. And he's like, yeah, but you're going to sit in a chair and you're going to talk about Dirty Dancing. And I was like, yeah, but we're going to tell jokes about Dirty Dancing and people are going to hopefully laugh at them. That's the point. It's like stand-up. And he was just like, uh-huh. And I'm driving 2 hours from home to come watch this
one way.
I was like, well, you don't have to come, but mom's coming. So, presumably you could hitch a ride pretty simply. And then he just said, uh-huh.
And went back to his paper.
So that's a little bit about our dad. More illustrative of that.
I don't really even tell my family about these things anymore because like, from all the wrestling and stuff, they've just always looked at me like, you're an idiot. Like, what you do is idiotic. Please don't. The less we know, the better.
Our mom is like a crazy, like the running joke is our mom is the #1 dissectomaniac, and that's true. Like she will post about our episodes on her Facebook page, and like it's not all of them because sometimes we swear too much, and I think she's like, I'm not sharing that with my friends.
Yeah,
but there's often ones where she like.
Well, she also said she didn't like that I said bonin.
Yeah, we switched out. We don't call it bonin anymore when people get down because mom doesn't like it. So that's the one concession we made to her.
Sorry, I was unplugging something.
That's okay. That's okay.
I was listening
Okay.
though.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. So mom is like super into the thing, and she's really. I mean, I'm sure our dad is excited that we're doing live shows, but he doesn't quite get it.
Yeah,
it hasn't clicked.
Yeah, my mom. One of the reasons I don't invite my mom at least to these things is I remember when I first started doing podcasting, and I would post the link out there to the world, and she would always comment on it, and like not like she was commenting on the show or the post, but like she was talking to me, and I'm like, Mom, I love you, but like. People that you don't know are reading this, and like text. That's a text message. You wanna say,
Private message. That's an email.
Yeah, like when you want to say, "Oh, I love the show," that's fine. If you want to say, "Oh, I love the show, I love you," mwah, 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 like let's not leave that on my like. Let's keep the mother-son relationship to a text message or an email or anything, but publicly and
Commenting.
to embarrass me. Yeah,
I mean,
Like,
we
thank
just
God it's not YouTube, because Lord knows what would happen in that comment section.
So I used to one of the reasons I don't edit shows, aside from being lazy, is that I out of the 9 years I've been doing podcasting, I'd venture to say most of it was live. It was just like live on the internet. Like we used to broadcast. I don't know if you guys ever heard of Stickcam.
I've heard of it, yeah.
I'm not familiar, but I get the gist. Yeah.
They were like one of the big streaming companies in the day. Like that, it was them and Ustream and I think Blog TV were like the big three. YouTube didn't even have streaming yet. And to me, Stickcam was the YouTube of streaming. Like that's how big they were. Like that's where you had, if you did a show, you got most of your audience from there. They were all 16-year-old kids, but that's where all your audience was. And so I started doing shows on that when a buddy of mine was doing a podcast and he needed a co-host. Like I signed up for like a 5-week contract to co-host, and that turned into like 2 years of me doing that. So because of that, I brought all my shows to Stickcam, and it was that like once you do it live for the stream, what's the point in editing?
Yeah, right.
For the podcast audience, because you've already put it out there to the world. So yeah, I don't edit anymore for that reason. I don't know how we got into editing, but
I don't recall.
Yeah,
I couldn't tell you.
The beauty of this show is that things like this happen. So let's get into a little bit about you guys and I guess your non-wrestling origin story of your podcast.
Now is this the part where I hijack again and start asking you questions?
Sure, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I was just
You
being,
can if you want.
no. Please do your interview. I would.
Yeah.
It's fun to sit on the other side of the table.
I'll tell you, it's funny that you mentioned that you make that comment, because I'm like when I'm trying to like book myself on other shows and whatnot, and like I think I have one scheduled for August, but like I'm thinking, I was like, do I really like do a bit for every show I go on, and like instead of being interviewed, I just hijack the show and interview them, like. Which is kind of I want to say it's not really an original bit. Like I've heard it done before, specifically, and it's not like he's hijacking it to do an interview. He's just hijacking it to derail the show. I listened to If I Were You from Jake and Amir.
With Ben Schwartz.
Yes. So that idea kind of comes from him, except I would actually be doing their show. Well, I would be doing my show on their show.
Yeah. I think that would be funny. I don't know if it's going to get you booked on a lot of shows.
Yeah, that's the problem. I don't know how other hosts would take that. I might be able to get away with it for 15 minutes and then still appreciate that it's humor. But I think after that, they'd say, all right, stop. Yeah. Your origin story of I guess how you got into podcasting in general, like what brought you to that point.
Cyndi Lauper. I mean, I guess technically no, Cyndi, because Cyndi was after your first podcast, right, Tripp?
Yeah. So I'll get to there, and then you can take over from there. So I'm trying to remember the exact start point here of whether this happened while I was working in a newspaper in Frederick, Maryland, and the paper closed. And I can't remember if this started like right before I lost my job or right after, but it was sort of in a weird time spot in my life.
It was
And
2013, like early 2013.
Yeah, so that's right. It's in the right ballpark anyway. So I somehow hit on this phrase "adventure pants," and I started just using it a lot. Like whenever somebody would try to not do something we were doing, I'd be like, "Come on, put on your adventure pants. Let's go do something." And it was like stupid, but I don't know where it came from or one of those just so. And then eventually I was like, "Oh, I really like that name. I should start doing a podcast about it." And the premise was, I would bring on a friend or sometimes not even a friend of mine. Sometimes it was a friend of a friend, but usually it was a friend of mine. And I would ask them to tell me the story of their greatest adventure. And so it was all different kinds of stuff. I mean, I had friends who, somebody told me once of like this crazy bar fight that spilled out and like somebody got hit with a pipe. And I got another one where like two buddies of mine got lost on a river. They were tubing on and it just turned into this cluster.
You don't do this podcast anymore?
No, I
think
did
it was
it
like
for
8 episodes.
No, I think it was about 15, but I ran out of people who were willing to come tell their stories. And so I was like, so that was the first part of the show.
I think I was on twice.
You were on twice.
And like at that point, you're like, if you're repeating me, like I'm not the most interesting in the world.
But I think it comes back, like I love storytelling and I love like the way different people tell stories. I love to hear people tell stories, even if it's somebody I've never met before. I find that process really neat. But I also would interview them with these weird hypothetical questions like, would you rather fight one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses? Like just random nonsense like that. And then at the end, we would talk about something else that was usually like pop culture or something related because I'm a movie person or whatever. And so I was doing this and really, really loved it. But eventually I just, like I said, I ran out of people. Like I just didn't have enough friends who were willing to come talk quote unquote on the radio. Like I did one with my mom and Andrew was on there twice and our older brother was on there and we did one, all three of us together. That was kind of fun. But like, I just ran out of people and I was like, well, I really love doing that. And there was like almost a year where I wasn't doing anything. And I was like, but I really like that thing. I have to figure out how to do it. And so that's when Cyndi Lauper came into our lives.
Which I'm glad. Like,
I mean, she'd been there for a while. I should clarify.
I love because that's the first thing that you guys mentioned when I asked that question, and that's what sticks out from your first episode that I've listened to. And how long have you been doing the podcast now?
So at the time this has been released, almost 2 years, but it actually didn't even start as a podcast. The Cyndi Lauper thing.
Okay, go on.
So
go ahead, Andrew.
I love Cyndi Lauper. Like I love the ladies of the 80s, which is what I like to refer to the podcast as. And he was like, hey, have you ever seen the because we were talking about crazy music videos from the 80s. And I was like, oh, the Ghostbusters one's really bananas, which I recommend if you've never seen it. And he was like, have you ever seen the one for Goonies or Good Enough? And I was like, no, I haven't. And he was like, okay, well, don't watch it. We'll watch it together and we'll like G-chat.
Like
and
live blog it.
Yeah, live blog it. So we went through and like live blogged the whole thing.
I don't want to keep interrupting you, but the video in question is like 14 minutes long. It's in 2 parts. It's bananas.
Okay.
Like every pro wrestler is there from the time. The cast of the Goonies shows up. A random sea witch shows up.
Steven Spielberg interrupts in the middle and like has a discussion about what's happening in the video.
It's crazy. And so that was the first thing. And then Tripp, took screen grabs of the music video and spliced and like stuck it in the middle of the conversation so people could kind of get an idea of where we were. And we're like, well, that was kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder.
We had talked about when we did the first, he was the first episode of Adventure Pants. And then afterward, we had just seen the Evil Dead remake. And so we talked for like 45 minutes of his story, probably 40 minutes of his story. And then we talked for like an hour about the Evil Dead movies and stuff. And I ended up having to cut it way down because it was just like all these weird side tangents. And like the podcast was 2 hours long. And I was like, no one's going to listen to this, not even my mom. But those two things together kind of sparked the fire. And like I said, we have watched bad movies together for almost our whole lives. So, and like did Mystery Science Theater. Like, I don't say this as like, oh, I came up with that. Like, Mystery Science Theater existed, but we did not know it existed, and we were doing the same thing at home. Just like I was probably like 12, 13 years old. He was 8 or so, and we would just watch these bad movies and make fun of them together. And we weren't like, now we'd be doing that with a beer or whatever.
Yeah.
Then it was just us like
Our ecto cooler.
yeah, exactly. So that the Lauper thing kind of watching that music video kind of crystallized the like, well, what if we just did it about 80s stuff? It's our like we both love that era for pop culture.
There's plenty to go on.
There's so many bad movies made then, and so much stuff. Like this totally makes sense. Why this is the show.
Yeah. So, well, and that's like one of my favorite things, and it's a shame that throughout because now I don't go to the movies as often because I'm a functioning adult with kids, so money has to go elsewhere. But I wish that I just had something like a phone back in the day to hit record after a movie, because all my favorite conversations happen in one of two places usually, and that's after a movie discussing the movie, or in a bar just talking about nonsense. And so I like movie review podcasts like what you guys do, or I guess it's not, I don't know if you want to call it movie review, but
kind of
movie discussion podcasts. And I really only listen to I probably listen, aside from what you guys put out, I think there's only one other one that I've listened to, and I'm selective with what episodes I listen to, but that I do listen to because I just have a shit ton of other podcasts I'm listening to. So I love that idea. I like to movie.
Okay.
Another local podcast in the Philly area. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
I've seen it, I think, and there's so Twitter has opened me up to like 40 billion new podcasts, and so I will often like listen to one or two of somebody, and then I'm like I have like 28 subscriptions or 30 subscriptions, and so it's just like I'm sorry, you gotta go. Like I just don't have room for you, but I like you.
And I've given up a lot of my mainstream. Like I used to be a big like Kevin Smith. I listened to every podcast on his network. I'm trying to think. I listened to a lot of the wrestler podcasts, like Austin's and Jericho's podcast, and I've given all of them up except for the main Smodcast show and Tell 'em Steve Dave.
Okay,
because I have all these wonderful quote unquote indie podcasts that I listen to that are, most of them happen to be from this area. Save for like I think there's 2 D&D podcasts that I listen to that I came across because of Party of One podcast, Too Cool for Tabletop, who we had on as a guest, and the Campaign podcast, that's a Star Wars one.
Oh, cool.
They're the only 2 non-Philly ones. Everything else is like Philly centric.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it just so happens that and you guys probably know this, being part of the Philadelphia Podcasting Society, opened up my eyes to like how strong the community was for podcasting, and then that just expanded into like, I'm more of a Twitter person anyway, so like when I started really kind of promoting on Twitter and like found out the whole hashtag Podern Family thing, I found out how big that community is there on Twitter as well, and it's amazing how many of us are out there, and I just get my podcast from there now. Like, and I'll usually give it 3 episodes, and if it catches my attention, boom. I might not be listening in a timely manner, but I'm your listener for life.
Yeah. I listened to Kevin Smith like when it started. I still like Kevin Smith. He's not like a foundational player for me anymore. Like I watched those movies obsessively, and it was like, oh my God, this is the kind of movie I would write. So I love that stuff. And like the first year or 2 of Smodcast, I keep saying like I should go really listen to those, because I remember walking to class in college before anyone knew what a podcast was, and like laughing my ass off at stuff like there. I don't know why the hell I remember this particular detail, but some joke he told about like painting his face to look like a chicken and hiding in a chicken coop, some nonsense like that. But I just remember like those kind of goofy tangents. Yeah. But when he started smoking pot and just doing the Scan BC, Scott, that was where I was like, I don't really have time for this anymore.
Yeah, those and those episodes tend to be the ones that like I am doing something else. Because there's usually little nuggets of information that are in those podcasts that I do want to listen to and I do want to hear. And like, I mean, I also do listen to his Hollywood Babylon because I'm a Ralph Garman fan.
Okay.
And so there are times that where if I fall too far behind on Smodcast, I may even delete those episodes.
Yeah.
And then just maybe catch one. And you know what? That one he doesn't even do on a regular basis anymore. Like that one, because him and Scott both are doing so much that I mean, if they're both doing nothing, it's weekly. But other than that, it's more random.
Right.
But I will. I am a huge fan of his from the movies, but he is, this came up right before we hit record, but he is one of 3 people that I admire in podcasting. It's him, Aisha Tyler, and I hate that she's gone monthly with her podcast, because she does long form interview like this show. So like, her more than even Kevin Smith, like I admire, just cause it's the same format and like kind of, like a learning tool for me. But she's insanely talented on, not just in podcasting, but in Whose Line and in everything I've seen
Archer.
her act in. Yeah, I haven't seen Archer, but it is on I think it's on my list. I think it's on Netflix, or it was at one point, and
it is still on Netflix. Yeah.
Yeah. And then and we briefly talked about Erin McGathy. She's one of the people that I like really admire in the podcasting / live performance world. So like I was so lucky to get one of them on that like I'm now trying to figure out how to get the other 2 on.
Yeah. Have you tried to go after Kevin? Because I have to imagine that's not impossible.
You know what? Not yet. I feel like I was going to try. He's going to be in town August 2nd, but I have plans for my nephew's birthday that day. So we're going to a Thunder game, Trenton Thunder game. So like he's going to be in Jersey. So there's no way that I can like feasibly make that happen. He was just in Philly, and like my fiance told me, just make the call or send the email or whatever it is. I'm really nervous about how to contact him because I can't find easy contact info. And I don't want it to be like something where like it just kind of just gets swept under the rug and I never hear anything about it.
But you never know. Plus they're shooting Mallrats.
I was going to say, isn't Mallrats 2 happening soon?
Well, it's actually now a TV show.
Yep. Yeah, but they're still shooting it in this area. I don't know if it's...
They are still shooting it, even though it's a TV show. They're still shooting it at the mall?
That's what I was told, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what he said. Now, I don't know if... I think his game plan, regardless, is to shoot in this area for Mallrats, or in the in the Pennsylvania, Philadelphia greater area. But
you may be more on top of it than I am, but I thought he had like locked Exon Square Mall as a shooting location.
He did. Last I heard, he did when it was a movie.
Okay.
I don't know how the timeline's been pushed because he's rewriting the Mallrats script for a TV show now, so he's got to go from I think an hour and a half to 5.5 hours or something.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that affected the location, but he did say that was his plan, was to still shoot there, to still have everyone, but maybe Batfleck return. And he's going to ask him when it's the last possible minute. But,
right.
So yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be plenty of opportunities in the next like 6 months to a year.
Yeah. I mean, go for it, man. What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah, and and when I sent the contact or the email to Erin McGathy, that was like after I sent it, I was like, man, I'm a freaking moron. Like I needed to send this to someone else that I wanted to talk to that may say no first, because like if she says no, like I'm done. Like this is one of my gets. I need to talk to her on this podcast. So she was really, really, really grateful in saying yes and coming on the show. And that was like, I don't know if we got this on air or not, but going back to like you guys saying like, oh man, like we're kind of a big deal. Like that was my big, like I'm a big deal now moment. Like, like, and not like in a necessarily like a cocky, arrogant way. Like I just like, okay, like it's not terrible for me to go after names now because I'm kind of legit. And it's I don't know. It's just, and even like, she even goes on Twitter and says, hey, so-and-so, will you be on my show? And I think I've seen Smith do it. I don't think I've seen Aisha Tyler do it, but, I think even the big names in podcasting have the same issues we do trying to make things happen.
Yeah, I mean that's most like we haven't done really guests, and I have like tried to backdoor into them because like I still do a little bit of reporting on the side, but it would be we would have to do like a segment with somebody because the way we do a movie, no person in their right mind is like, oh yeah, I'll sit with you for 2 hours while we talk about the movie in excruciating detail and you make fun of the way my hair looks. Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Although I would, if we got Leah Thompson, I would say nothing bad about her.
All right, we're going to cut the show right there. Thank you to Andrew and Tripp for coming on the show. We're going to have them back on later this week for part 2 of our conversation, but make sure you check out PhillyPodFest.com for the complete schedule of this weekend's events for the Philadelphia Podcast Fest. Dissecting the 80s will be there, and they're going to be talking Top Gun. They're going to be making jokes. It's going to be a good time. Please, please, please go check it out. And again, thank you. Thank you, the Super Friends, for coming out and watching me do this show live. I recently read an article about from Jason Tabris, or maybe Tabris, who is someone I follow on Twitter. He was a host of a podcast that I really enjoyed, and tried to get him on this show, but there was some stuff that was conflicting, so we haven't gotten him on yet. But he recently wrote an article about late night, and I read it right after we did our live show, and like between what I learned from doing the live show and like realizing what I did wrong and reading his article, I really think our next live show, our next late night Everything is Awesome, we're really going to succeed even more than we did before. At the end of the day, no matter what worked and what didn't work, I had so much fun. And that's all I could ask for. And I'm hoping that Mike had fun, I'm hoping Orlando had fun, and that Garrett had fun, and that all of you, the Super Friends who came out to support, had fun. And hopefully, not only are we going to air the audio from our Philadelphia Podcast Fest show from August 21st, but we should have video that we're going to be able to throw up on YouTube as well. So, stay tuned for this week for the other conversation, part 2 of my conversation with Dissecting the 80s, Tripp and Andrew, the boys that host that. And next week, stay tuned for us to round out Philadelphia Podcast Fest month with our live show, Everything is Awesome, late night in the afternoon edition. God, I'm still on that high. I really, really enjoyed it. And if you haven't already, if you haven't checked out any of the other shows, do it. I mean, and I was a guest, guys. I was a guest on This Makes Me Happy at the Philadelphia Podcast Fest. So make sure you check that out. It's going to drop on Monday, the 29th. So I'll post links to that when it comes out. Be sure to check that out. It was such a surprise thing that happened. I was volunteered to do it. It was pretty cool. Anyway, make sure you check out the show on Twitter at Real Awesome Pod. Check me out on Twitter at HHWST. And of course, make sure you check the show out on iTunes and awesomepodcast.com and all those places. The one thing you can do to really help this show even more than you've already have, Super Friends, is subscribe to us on iTunes and leave a 5-star review. Like, all that helps get this in front of more eyes and more ears, and the more people that listen to this show, the cooler things we can do, just like the Philadelphia Podcast Fest, guys. And if you've already done that, or you really are so against leaving a review, that's cool too. Tell a friend to download Everything is Awesome, and just spread the word. If you see me post something about this show, just share it on Twitter, or on Facebook, or whatever social media you use, and let's just spread the love of Everything is Awesome. Guys, we'll catch you next time right here, only on awesomepodcast.com.